up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, joined as always by the Senator Phil Perry. We'll also be joined by the exquisite Kay Adams of NFL Network and Good Morning Football, formerly of Quick Slants, as you all know. We've gone over and over and over the draft already. We've had our opinions, but let's cut down to brass tacks, should we, Phil? We're going to talk about the why of these selections, and we're also going to run through a depth chart. Phil is our draft guru. I have my feelings as well, but I'm going to defer to Phil on the why of Cole Strange at 29 overall in the first round.
This one to me is pretty easy. It's just the most glaring need on the roster, right? You need a starter there. Unlike just about every other position where you could get by, you really couldn't get by with just Mike Onwenu and whatever else you had at guard. So that to me is what makes sense, Tom. And this is what they did. This is one similarity. I wrote about this yesterday, how this draft class is just so different from last year's, and last year's was a home run. So why deviate? But this, in this respect, it is similar to last year. Most obvious need on the roster, first round, hit it, get a guy you like, and move forward.
It's funny because maybe a week or two ago, we would sit there at the early edition of the desk and argue about what are the Patriots, what's their most glaring need? And I did sit there and say offensive line a few times, and Phil would say corner just because it's a premium position. Not that Phil was wrong and I was right by any stretch, but to see a player that, like McDuffie, sitting there at 21 to fill a need at a premier position seemed to make sense when you can get the guard later. But the why of Cole Strange makes perfect sense. He is bowling with the bumpers and the gutters. It was an easy, safe pick. You can't throw a gutter ball with Cole Strange, and they likely didn't. Second round pick, Tyquan Thornton. Why?
Because they needed some speed at receiver. Now, I thought they were not completely covered, but better covered by trading for Devontae Parker. That at least gave them a threat outside the numbers down the field. He's not necessarily a 4.2 speed guy, but he fulfilled that need that I have heard the Patriots had been dying for from opposing coaches, Tom. I've talked to multiple defensive coaches who game planned for the Patriots last year, and they said it's just, listen, they weren't an easy offense to play, but in terms of the planning, it was relatively simple. You had to contend with everything that they throw at you from a run game perspective, but we were not scared of their receivers. 4.28 speed, if he can prove that he's actually good, Tom, that's the big caveat. He can't be Damiere Byrd, who's a NFL roster player. Like, I get that, but he can't be Byrd. He can't be Philip Dorsett, because those guys just weren't threats, even though they had the unbelievable timed speed. He has to prove he can be a threat, but if he proves that, it really would help their offense moving forward.
I don't get I get the why of it. They wanted downfield speed. My misgiving is the speed that I thought the Patriots needed was underneath speed. I think that would help to open up more plays. They need more guys who work between the numbers. Aguilar does not excel at that. He can do it. Myers can do it. I just don't think that the water bug that uncovers in a phone booth is present on the Patriots roster. They have high cut outside receivers, high cut slot, and tight ends. And I just think they missed the water bug or the third down back, which was James White, who's still coming back from injury. But that's the why of Tyquan Thornton. The speed I think that they needed was elsewhere, but you got a guy who runs like a human funny car, minus the parachute. Next up, Marcus Jones, the why of the third round pick out of Houston. It's a good one.
Yeah, to me, the why is versatility, but you have to start with what he's going to do for you defensively, in my opinion. And what I think he'll do for you defensively is bring you some real speed to play in the slot area and be not just a successor to John Jones, but a complement to John Jones. And, if you want to get even more granular with it, I think the Patriots needed matchup options for what the Dolphins have down there in Miami. You really didn't. If they threw Waddle and Hill on the field, there's only one John Jones on the roster before going into this year's draft. Well, now you might have two. These low cut, really fast, really good accelerators that are tough and can tackle. Now, Marcus Jones is really undersized at 5'8", 175, but he brings a lot of those traits that you like. And on top of it, You get some return ability. You might even get some offensive ability because of what he did at Houston. But the why of it is, I think, traced back to Miami, Tom.
Isn't it funny when you think about the receivers we're talking about to reference back to, Marcus Jones does make sense. Sticky, underneath guy, highly competitive, aggressive, good speed, good phone booth quickness. But these teams, whether it's Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, or even the Jets re-signing Braxton Berrios or Isaiah McKenzie or Emmanuel Sanders, these teams are attacking places and personnel that the Patriots used to embrace as the Patriots somehow seemingly move away from the 5'10" and under crew who is able to stress and make you spend a third-round pick on a 5'8", 178-pound corner just to deal with it. It's ironic, isn't it? It's the first time it kind of dawned on me.
Well, it is in that respect. I also find it ironic that they, my understanding is you pass on Trent McDuffie in the first round because you don't love his size and you're a little concerned about his size. And then in the third and fourth rounds, and I get it's later in the draft and you're willing to accept warts at that point in the draft that you wouldn't in the first round. But in the third and fourth rounds, you go back to back with two of the smallest corners in the draft class. That to me is an interesting piece to all of this as well.
And that's the why of Jack Jones. Next up at Arizona State, fourth rounder, ball hawk who comes with resume concerns, off-field resume concerns. So the why of him.
To me, the why is you lost J.C. Jackson in free agency and you wanted to somehow try to find someone who could replicate that skill set to a degree. Because when you look at these two players and their skill sets as well as their concerns as prospects, very similar. I mean, we know J.C. Jackson came into the league with all kinds of off the field concerns, but the best tracker of the football that Devin McCourty has ever seen during his time here in New England. And that's having played with Aqib Talib and Darrelle Revis and all the other, big time names that have come through here. So is Jack Jones that level player? I don't know. His ball production, Tom, is unbelievable at Arizona State and USC as a young player all the way back in 2017. So I think that's the why, but he's so small, Tom. I just wonder how often he will actually be able to play. JC Jackson was about 20 pounds heavier than this guy coming out of college, and about the same speed and with all those ball skills. So 171 pounds at the combine. I'm just not sure how you get people on the ground at that size. So that part of it to me is the why as opposed to the why.
It's funny, of the first four picks in terms of the guy we might be saying later on that, okay, they saw something there and they got it right. It might be Jack Jones, huh? Like if he ends up being a 6-pick guy, if he ends up being one of those ricochet pick guys who has great ball sense to come off at the right time and undercut things. And he could be that guy from the first four picks.
Yeah. And I mean, think of another guy who undersized, great ball skills, not great timed speed coming out of college in the fourth round years and years ago, Asante Samuel. Maybe they see a little bit of that kind of player in him as well.
All right. So he's our sleeper. Bailey Zappi, Western Kentucky. The why of this, can I handle it? It's simple. Yeah. Stop it with the Mac Jones is in trouble or the Patriots have him on a short leash. Just cut it out. This is simply about Jarrett Stidham. Okay. They took a shot. They shot an arrow. He wasn't horrible. He's hung around for a few years, but it's time to bring the next guy in. And you do it in the fourth round with kind of the anti-Stidham, a guy who doesn't look great in shorts and a T-shirt and doesn't have electric arm strength like Jarrett Stidham came into the NFL having, but a guy who has unbelievable production, poise, and accuracy without the greatest arm. So you got the anti-Stidham. You brought in Brian Hoyer, perhaps, and that's what the Patriots had to do. This is as safe a pick, in my estimation, as Cole Strange might have been in the first round, Phil.
Yeah, the only issue here, again, to bring up the opposite end of it is you do have Brian Hoyer, and you have a starter in Mac Jones. Do you need three? Because when they could get away with two, when Tom Brady was here, they got away with two. They a lot of times did not want to have three on the roster. It wasn't until later in Brady's career and they had Jacoby Brissett and they keep him around. Now you've got three. It feels like they could have maybe tried to address another need here as opposed to getting a third string quarterback. That's all.
All right, now we're going to scoot into the running backs. You know what? I leapfrogged a player to hit you with Bailey, but sorry, Pete Strong Jr. Pierre Strong Jr. He's a running back out of South Dakota State. Same alma mater as Adam Vinatieri. Why? Why this guy? And not that I have a problem with it, but why?
I believe he played with Adam Vinatieri's son, who kicked at South Dakota State. Why Pierre Strong? Well, you referenced the questions about James White's availability moving forward. I would say that's the why. You need your future third down sub package back based on Pierre Strong's size. He's just over 200 pounds, about 5'11". He caught 60 plus balls in college. He's had some drops issues, Tom. He's had some fumble issues, but you need the next in line at that spot. I'm not sure it's JJ Taylor. He's been in the system a couple of years. It doesn't feel like they're totally comfortable with him there. So that to me is the why.
Of these picks that we've discussed so far, which one is not developmental? Which
Cole
one do
Strange.
you think will make, okay, how many will make significant 2022 contributions? And by significant, I mean play in more than half the games. I know it's a full-on projection I'm asking you to do, but play in more than half the games. And we didn't know Mike Onwenu was going to play in a shit ton of games as a rookie and be really good. So, but this is just projected.
Cole Strange, easy. Tyquan Thornton should, Tom. He is a second-round pick, and maybe this is for a podcast down the line, but I would not be surprised if there's a receiver move coming on this Patriots roster, because you don't go and get a second-round receiver only to not play him. So I would believe that those two are in more than half your games. I say Marcus Jones as well, and maybe it's just as a returner, but he needs to play more than half the games as a third-round pick. I think Pierre Strong has a chance to. I think all four of their top four picks either should or will play in more than half their games.
I think they should. I don't think they will. I think Josh Uche should have. He hasn't. I think that.
But that's injury, right?
Josh Uche, ankle, I don't know. Even when he was healthy last year in year two, he was still just watching for a lot of it. Couldn't crack it. Apprenticeship. Get him ready. See what happens next year. Now everybody gets vomited onto the field, apparently. You know, just, hey, who's your best player? Cam McGrone. What happened to the apprenticeship? I mean, Cam McGrone might be the most important player on the Patriots defense in 2022. Between him, Raekwon McMillan, and Mac Wilson, there is so much that has been put on those three players, and none of them are really what you would say, hey, this is a guy to tap on the shoulder and build your defense around. And that's what second level linebackers kind of should be able to do, especially when you're coming in for Van Noy and Hightower and Collins.
I just look at, what you spend on what you're spending at these positions. If they don't play, it's a failure. Like Josh Uche, for him not to be playing, he's been injured, I know it, but you're right. At times he hasn't, and he still have a very bit role in some of these games, 7 snaps, 8 snaps. That's a failure in the second round. Like, you take a receiver, Tom, we've seen all the second round receivers that have had huge success. You take him in the second round, you think he can play and play early. And if he doesn't, it's not a good look, even though it looks like they have depth on their roster right now.
Think about what a profile of a second round receiver over the last few years has been. And we'll just use the 2019 draft as a for instance. DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and who's my other guy? AJ Brown. Those are 3 second round receivers. Metcalf was second, right? He didn't sit there until the third.
End of the second.
Okay. Not saying they have to perform like those 3 did or be on the same arc, but Tyquan Thornton should be, as far as the league is concerned, and the league is a good measure. The Patriots can't just live in this little silo where they do their own thing, because they're 17-17 over their last 34 games. That's including playoffs. Scoot me through the depth chart real quick, if you could. Obviously, we don't have to do quarterback. We don't have to do center. Scoot me through the guard depth chart.
I think you're looking at Mike Onwenu. You're looking at Cole Strange. And then you
left
might
guard Onwenu.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they play that. I mean, a lot of times they've liked to have Onwenu and Trent Brown on the same side. You think of that right side of your line as sort of your road grading side, as your power side, and the left side is sort of the athletic side. So if I had to pick right now, I would say Cole Strange is more a Joe Tooney type, right? So good athlete, a little bit lighter. I would anticipate he's on the left side. That's also where he played the vast majority of his snaps in college. So I would put him on the left and have Mike Owenu on the right. And then you'd have James Ferentz behind him and Chasen Hines, who was their 6th round pick out of LSU. They've got a couple undrafted linemen as well, it looks like. So, that's sort of the interior offensive line depth chart right now. And
Ferentz is your center backup as well.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's, and Strange has worked there, and Matt Groh, we know, is very adamant about the fact that he's not just a guard. He's not just a guard. So people keep saying he's just a guard. He's not just a guard. I guess that means they think he can play some center too.
All right. So next up, let's look at the wide receiver depth chart. And I'll take first crack. Kendrick Bourne will be on the field and ought to be for 80% of the snaps. Jacoby Myers should be on the field for 80% of the snaps. Devontae Parker, I don't know if they can all be on the field for 80% of the snaps, but he should be out there an awful lot. Then what? So we're going, let's say, what are we doing for a backfield? Let's go one running back.
Yeah, so your 11 personnel, your 1 back, 1 tight end, 3 receiver set. That it should be those three names that you mentioned right there. I think Nelson Aguilar is the odd man out here. Nelson Aguilar was brought in to be the speed guy that they just drafted Tyquan Thornton to be. So, he's in the last year of his deal and he's owed some real money. Aguilar is, and so maybe they can't move him, Tom. But I don't know if he's long for this roster, because again, you draft Tyquan Thornton, top 50 picks, you're expecting him to play that role. He doesn't even have to be a starter. It doesn't even have to be a top 3 guy, but that's sort of the Aguilar role now, is your number 4 speed guy. And they just brought someone in to replace him, in my opinion.
They're not gonna do it. Mark it down. They're not going to trade Nelson Aguilar because the $9 million is too rich. Nobody's going to want to have Nelson Aguilar. So the Patriots are going to end up keeping Nelson Aguilar, and Tyquan Thornton is going to be, no, thanks. Just looking for the entire year. Say you're going to, what is that? 12 personnel. So 2 wideouts on the field. You got to get Johnny.
Can I just say,
yeah,
then bad pick. Yeah, like you can't play 5 guys. So maybe Jacoby Myers, he's in the last year of his deal. He's way too valuable for me to want to give up on, but maybe they look at Kendrick Bourne and they say he can play inside. Aguilar can play a little bit inside, and we can't get rid of him. So people will want Jacoby. We could get something, that's actually pretty valuable back for him. He's only costing some team $4 million.
Imagine if you take away Matt Jones, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and his most trusted underneath receiver. Instead, say, have fun, buddy.
And his best offensive lineman.
Other than that, obviously the tight end depth chart. Will this be the year that Dalton Keene surpasses anybody? No. All right, let's move over to defense. Secondary defense, 5 defensive backs going against Miami, for instance.
Yep. So I think where you would be right now in the secondary would be McCourty as your free safety, Duggar as your strong safety. Phillip, they're going to play a lot of 3 safety defenses, Tom. We know that. But going against Miami, it's a little bit lighter personnel. So instead of Phillips, you have Jonathan Jones in there in the slot, and then you have Malcolm Butler on one side, and you have Jalen Mills on the other. That to me would be your 5.
And you're always going to want to keep Duggar on the field to deal with Gesicki. You're always going to want to keep McCourty on the field to double over the top on Hill or Waddle or whoever unearths. Boy. And at some point, Marcus Jones should get some snaps in some games to get in there where Jonathan Jones is and return some punts and kickoffs.
And maybe, Tom, honestly, this is a conversation we can have too, but Jonathan Jones, I'll pull up his numbers right now.
He doesn't play all the time.
But is he on notice here? I mean, I don't think he should be, but they just took a slot corner in the 3rd round. I think they should keep both again for that Miami matchup. And I think it would be crazy, but I'm going to pull up his numbers right now to see if they feel like they need to, because at the moment, I believe our guy Miguel has the Patriots as so close to the cap. They can't even sign their draft class right now. And Jonathan Jones is under contract with a $7.7 million cap number. That includes a $5.4 million base salary.
That's a lot for a slot corner. but he's a great special teamer, but he also has been laid low by injury a few times. Last place I want to do a quick depth chart visit is the linebacker level. Say first down, you're running with 3 linebackers on the field against a power team.
Yeah. So say you're playing
Nick Chubb and the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. So against that kind of offense, I would think your linebacker group would be Jawan Bentley. And I'm actually going to give Raekwon McMillan the nod here as your second guy. But I do think there is real promise for both McMillan and McGrone. But to me, Bentley is your true first, second down, big bodied linebacker. And then you're going to try to figure out what you have between those other 2 guys.
All right. Well, Phil, we got a lot to get to.
Oh, Mac Wilson too. Man, Mac Wilson. We forgot about Mac Wilson. He's in that mix as well. No, don't forget
Mac Wilson. We got a lot to get to. And you know what? I have Kay on deck in the waiting room in just a second. And you don't keep Kay waiting, Phil. Bottom line, you don't keep Kay waiting. So I
get that. She's the queen of football media.
She really is. The reigning queen. The queen of Cincinnati. She always strived to be that. Phil, great stuff. Great work all throughout the draft. And we will talk to you later in the week, my guy.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, look who's here. Huh?
I miss you. I love you. This just feels right. It always feels
really
right.
Really does. It's a Quick Slants Alumni Day. So happy to have you, kid. The queen of Cincinnati, Kay Adams.
That's me.
You good?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to. I don't Zoom schmoom. Oh my God, you see like my whole house. So good.
Yeah, what's the story there?
There's just lots of dead flowers. Look how loved I am.
I like it though. I think it's nice. It's better than mine. I look like I'm in front of a chalkboard. Listen to me, friend. You are at the nerve center of the NFL. You are really the nucleus.
I really
and
am.
I want to know first, from your perspective, what your thoughts are on the Patriots draft, because it's coming across your board. You spend hours every day on this, and you have a more 30,000 foot perspective.
But I also have a human approach to it. And I don't preach, every team, all 32 of my children in my nucleus, they all value these players differently. So there is a bit of, there's what you think and what everyone thinks, what the media collectively thinks, but none of it matters. It's all what goes on in that front office. And with the Patriots, I've become, because of my human element to this, Cole Strange's biggest fan, Tom. I am waving. I want the jersey. I'm hitting up Stacey James. I want to be his best friend, just because I understand we passed up on talent. We passed up on a lot of defensive needs that the Patriots have, but we don't know. This kid he allowed 1 sack in his entire college career. PFF had him graded out as the best guard. He's versatile. He can play anywhere on the line. You got to protect Mac Jones. I'm not mad at the pick because I've just seen too many times. And here's what I'll really say. When it comes to that, when it comes to the offensive line, Tom, is there a position or is there a group where I trust the Patriots drafting more than the offensive line? No. They always do pretty well, and they know what they're doing when it comes to the O-line. There's some other areas that are left to be desired and are much more needing improvement as far as draft reputation go than the O-line. So let's leave Cole Strange alone. Then
okay.
You got Thornton. I like to listen.
Nobody's killing Cole Strange. It's not Cole Strange's fault. And I do sympathize with this kid being in his first year, his first post-college job, and everyone's saying, well, why'd they get that guy? Right. It has more to do with the decision-making than the player. It's an exceeding safe pick, which is the point you're making.
The heart wants what the heart wants, and they clearly had to have fallen in love with him. And it does seem like a bit of a settling pick, doesn't it? Like they reached, and I understand that, but there's also just this safety in taking.
Just get it done.
There's just a safety in taking that position. We can use him everywhere. Small school, it's sort of cute, but I'm okay with that. So where I sit every morning, it's all speed, right? Speed. The Patriots are behind. Add a vertical threat, even though you have a full wide receiver room of speed. I don't know why 100%. That didn't work out. And I'd like to see Aguilar out there at some point. But you have this Thornton kid, Burner. You know what? They also added speed with the Pierre Strong pick.
Yep. And
Arnie
he's a James White kind of guy. If
4-3-7.
it projects that way, he can come in, and they need that. What I look at when you're talking speed is you need short area speed. The Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, get open in a phone booth guy.
Those are the days.
They were the days. And why would you not want to go back to those days of Troy Brown, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, the guys who get open in tiny little areas and then make guys miss after the catch? In 3 years playing for Baylor, our guy Taekwon, fast as he is, only broke 11 tackles. He's only like 3 yards after the catch. And I think the Patriots need easy throws for Mac Jones and someone to make yards after the catch.
Well, see, that's what we saw, though. Tons of easy throws last year. And as a fan, I want to see some deeper throws. I want to see some downfield stuff from the burner. And I don't know. But to me, the biggest question, and I was actually up in New England, it was very cool to be back and sort of get the vibe of all the fans up there. Who's calling plays? Like, what's going on with the coaching to me is such a question mark up there.
Which is kind of hamstringing Mac Jones' development, because obviously McDaniels is gone, Mick Lombardi's gone, Bo Hardigree's gone. Those are not, Shula and Landry in Bo Hardigree and Mick Lombardi, but those are guys who had Mac's back and he felt comfortable with. And right now, it looks like Nick Caley might be the play caller.
Oh.
Matt Patricia and Joe Judge will be involved as well.
Patricia's just on offense now? Why is no one?
He's helping with the offensive line.
No one's talking about this. Why is no one in my world talking about that?
I don't know, because it's funny. And I want to ask you this because, perception nationally continues to be the reverence for the Patriots and Bill Belichick, where he doesn't come in for criticism because of his resume. And I think there's very much a cautious approach to second guessing Bill that comes with but he's Bill Belichick. Whereas around here, there is much more readiness to say, look, the recent past doesn't indicate that the Bill Belichick resume is the same as it was. Are you seeing a creeping willingness at your place of work where the criticism is less gentle and more pointed?
No, I think, it might be the worst insult to the Patriots. Usually we talk about them a lot, and we're not as much as usual. There's not a huge focus on what's going on in New England. That focus has shifted to the Buffalo Bills. That focus this off season has shifted to the Dolphins. There's some intrigue there. They've got some real offensive weapons. And, I don't know how you guys have to stop that. And defense question up there in New England. So I don't know if I read Peter King, no one more reputable than him. I think, didn't he call Cole Strange's choice naive?
Naive.
You don't think that's critical? That's pretty scathing.
No, that's what I mean. Is there is a creeping willingness to just start to open up. But I do think, like, for instance, and it's not a great example.
I always thought that his kryptonite, like, at least when I think of the draft, I think if Bill Belichick, even 5 years ago, has a weakness, it is the approach to that. But ultimately, there is a respect that I do think he's due, and a little leeway when it comes to that.
I do. I agree with you. And I don't think anyone should be able to take away from him the successes of Hightower and Chandler Jones and Devin McCourty and Rob Gronkowski, and doesn't even get into pick 199. But, the recent past and where the team is. Be that as it may.
Wait, let me ask you this. Is everybody going crazy about Zappy? Is everyone looking quarterback up there, or no? Nothing.
I don't know how happy people are about Zappy.
Really?
I think there is a perception, Kay, that, whoa, Mac Jones is on a short leash suddenly. They brought in Zappy. And that's not why he's here. He's here to replace Jarrett Stidham. He's here to finally take over for Brian Hoyer, who at some point should move on. So it has nothing. Mac Jones is as secure as Robert Kraft is right now, Kay.
And I think it's just always fascinating when any team takes a quarterback. It is so much hoopla, but the Patriots are always – Ryan Mallett, Stidham, Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett. They consistently draft quarterbacks. It's what they do. So I was just curious about that.
No, it's mostly, okay, they took a quarterback. Some people think it might be kind of a wasted pick in the 4th round, but I don't think it is. You have to get a good one in case you do have an ACL.
Yeah, great, Tom.
You like it? Okay. Hey, what has it been like this off season for you to kind of be in the nerve center, as I said before, with, it's Jimmy, it's Baker Mayfield, it's the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill, it's Devontae Adams, it's Brady. You have to juggle it all.
I love free agency is my favorite time of year. Hands down, 1,000,000%. The draft is wonderful and cute and optimistic, and all 32 teams are like flowers and rainbows and cupcakes, and everyone's happy, and there's so many great storylines. And then it gets picked apart. It's just, the draft is wonderful, but the drama of the free agency, who got jilted by who, the deals, who's getting what, who's not happy, who's disgruntled, the value of players. Like, it's, that part is so, the retooling, are you retooling on the fly versus rebuild? It all becomes so apparent. That is like a fascinating couple of weeks. And this year was the Russell Wilson, all of that. But imagine sitting there and you think, oh no, there's nothing to talk about. There's always something to talk about. There's always a Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay, coming back, retiring, unretiring narrative that goes on. And it's so fun. You just have to go on the fly, go with it. And it's so much easier for me personally, easier than any other part of the year, especially the draft. Cause I don't, college football, I'll start paying attention once I know, I get a huge binder. I start watching and breaking things down. But this is like guys who are what they are in the NFL.
Right.
And they have
exactly. They're finished products changing teams.
Devontae Adams thing, the Tyreek Hill thing, it's fascinating because these are bona fide stars making these moves and decisions, not just based motivated on money, based on what they think is a better situation for them. I love it.
Okay, what time are you going to get up in the morning?
These days, not as early as I used to. I have to be at work at 6:57. The show starts at 7, and I just sort of walk in and sit down and do my thing. So I'm up about 5 a.m. every day. It used to be 3, it used to be 4, it used to be 5. Pandemic sort of switched it a little bit, where I don't have to be in quite as early because I just wake up and spackle my face and fill in some holes and get in there by myself.
Does it wear your ass down? I mean,
no. It's such like
it's like hosting a morning show. I mean, it literally is hosting a morning show, but it's like hosting a morning radio show, but you have the television element to it, and you have the juggling element, and you have the breaking news element.
If I wasn't doing that on the show, if it was, I wouldn't be as interested. That would wear me down. The fact that you go in, it's live, it's more of a routine than a show. I think at this point, it's part of my day. People wake up, get breakfast, read the paper, work out, drive their kids to school. That's my 3 hours on Good Morning Football. It is, if I did a weekly show, it would be, I would still every day be looking at the headlines, and this sort of forces you to stay in it and on top of it. And that takes a lot of work when it's all 32 you're covering. And it's so like, I hate that it's, those surface headlines. You always want to go. I listen to you and Phil all the time.
Oh, thank you. You said something about a weekly show. We're losing the exquisite Meg Ottolini. She's going to WEEI. She's our co-host here at Quick Slants right now. So there's going to be a void.
Congrats to her.
Yeah, well, be that as it may with her.
Got a great farm system over there.
Yeah, there's a void. Sometimes people want to boomerang back.
Do you want to bring me back?
Yep.
Would you bring me back?
4 bags of Sour Patch Kids. 7 bags. It's a done deal.
Got to bring Jimmy Toscano has to come with me.
Jimmy the T, he's in. Of course he's in. Everybody loves Jimmy. We got to bring him back. I
would love to. I mean, I cannot embarrass myself anymore and beg you to have me back on that program. I'm sure you've read the papers. I've got some decisions and some exciting stuff going on. So
I didn't want to go down that road.
I want to add a Quick Slants offer to, just complicate my puzzle pieces. It would hop on in, the water's warm.
What are you going to do?
Oh man, Tom, I don't know.
When do you have to decide by?
What should I do? What would you think a good move for me? A dream scenario.
Look,
let's manifest it.
A dream scenario would probably be to come and work for NBC. In some fashion. Now, I wouldn't say NBC Sports Boston because I think that your star has risen in the stratosphere to a higher spot in the galaxy, and you should probably be shining on a wider
You're so nice.
Planet. So that being the case, I would love to see you under this particular umbrella on a national stage and doing work there. I think that would make sense. I don't want you to be getting up at 5:57 a.m. You're not a morning.
But I'm a morning. I'm a morning person.
Come on.
Are you kidding?
Were you before this show?
I think
Yeah.
I get up at 5 a.m. every day, 5 or 4. I get up around 4.
Now, but you didn't do that in 2018 or 17 or whenever the hell this started.
You want to talk about what I was doing when I was back in 2017? I was a child. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know.
You were doing quick slants.
I was doing quick slants and eating ice cream for dinner and, all sorts of, I was doing a lot of things that were bad for me, Tom, back then.
All right. She's all grown up. Listen, we got a time element here, so I'm going to have to wrap it.
Oh, okay. Well, I love you. And can we just wrap your arms around Cole Strange?
He is Strange 69.
All right. Love you.
Everybody needs the shirt. Bye, friend.